Hello, welcome to my channel. We're gonna go ahead and start building my new wheel with the Night Freecoaster hub onto an Odyssey light rim with these spokes. So I'll basically show you how I build a wheel. Should be kind of cool.
Windy again. Love this trail. Woo. Might have to overshoot some of these this time. Here we go, Chad. Oh yes. Can't believe I just did that.
Okay, so when I bought the spokes, they came with these nipples. These are your normal steel or brass maybe. They're black, so it's hard to tell. Nipples. These are going to be stronger. So if you're really hardcore and you bend and destroy wheels easily, you definitely want to go this route. Me, I'm 53. I don't do like the latest greatest tricks, and I believe alloy nipples will do me just fine. Weight wise, I put these on my scale. They don't even register. These were like 1/10 of a pound. So, I mean, huge difference in weight. And when we talk about wheels, the further you get out to the rim, the heavier it is, the more effect it's going to have. It's kind of like a physics thing. Added weight to the inner part of the wheel isn't going to matter as much as added weight to the outer edge. So people who want, especially racers and stuff, who want quicker acceleration and things, lightening spokes, lightening spoke nipples, having a lighter rim is going to make a huge difference. Even a lighter tire, sometimes a lighter tube, or even going tubeless makes a huge difference in what's called rotational mass. So feeling this weight versus this weight, that's actually going to make a big difference on acceleration, like how quickly you can get started, which for freestyle or street riding isn't as important. But I figured I wanted blue, and alloy isn't really gonna be an issue for me because I'm just not that hardcore of a rider. Again, we'll see. I'm gonna go ride it, and if I end up bending the rim or tweaking it or breaking spokes, then I guess I'll realize I have to go with the tougher spoke nipples. But for now, I'm gonna try alloy, see how it goes. Another thing to notice is if you look at this hub, this side, this is called the flange. This is one side, this is the other side. So this would be the drive side flange. Notice how it's much bigger than the non-drive side. So that actually makes a difference when I'm building the wheel. I have 188 millimeter spokes and 184 millimeter spokes. So the 184 are going to go on the drive side, and the 188s are going to go on the non-drive side. I'm doing a 3-cross, and if you're wondering what a cross is, that's how many times your spoke crosses other spokes before it goes to the rim. So in a 3-cross, hopefully you can see this clearly. If you start where the spoke goes through the hub, you've got this first cross, which is right away, right where this spoke is. That's 1 cross, 2 cross, 3 cross. Used to be the deal to always cross, do BMX rims 4 cross because it was considered stronger. But over the years, we've learned that having a stronger rim, like the rim itself, they're double wall, and actually they're like double wall with vertical supports. Like rims have gotten really strong. Like they're hard to tweak and bend, and because of that, it's allowed us to go to fewer crosses, fewer spokes, because if you go way back in the day, we used to run 48 spokes on freestyle bikes, things like that. Now we're able to run 36 spokes, 3 cross, things like that. And sometimes there's even 32 spokes. So you just have to be careful and make sure you know how many holes are in the hub. So you're either going to be 36 or 32. Most BMX stuff is 36. So that's where we're going to start. And I'm going to go ahead and start building the wheel, but I'm going to go ahead and just talk a little bit about how you want to get started. So for people that are new to this, you definitely want to have a wheel around, and I'm going to use this one to know how to line up the spokes. So what you'll notice is you have your valve hole. That's where your inner tube valve goes. That's your starting point. And you want to start lacing your spokes from there and around. Very important that you start by lacing all your inside spokes. And when I say inside spokes, the spokes that are on the inside of your hub. And you lace all the inside spokes on one side before you lace the outside spokes. If you start lacing outside spokes and then try to lace your inside spokes, it's possible, but you end up bending and tweaking the spoke around, and it's a huge pain in the butt. So lacing inside first, then we're going to go lace the outside, and we're going to make sure we get this twist pattern correct. And the key is if you look at this wheel, you want the valve hole to go where this even parallel spoke space is. You do not want your valve to go where you have this kind of tight triangle. And the reason for that is when you go to put a pump in there, it's going to be really hard to put your pump in there. If you try to put it in here, you have all that space. So very important that when you start correctly and in the right spot, so you end up with this pattern, and you don't end up with your valve hole here or here or here. You want it in one of these wider spaces. So that's just things that sometimes are easy to overlook, but you always have to keep that in mind when you're first getting started. So we're going to go ahead and start on this other wheel, and we're going to start on the drive side, all right? And so I'm going to take the shorter spokes. It's always got to keep track of all this stuff, because if you screw it up, you end up having to start over again. And you don't want to have to start over again. So you go in here, let's get out our short spokes. And it doesn't matter where you start on the hub, unless you're really particular about where the logo on the hub goes. It doesn't matter. For me, I just pretty much don't care. So there's my first spoke, and I need to get some lube out here. Let's just grab this park grease. So there's different things you can put on your spoke. A lot of people use a thing called Spoke Prep. Spoke Prep is actually a product that is made for this. It's kind of like Loctite. It starts out, you know, to help you get your spokes threaded, you know, lubrication for your threads, and then it firms up later. I've kind of always just used grease and have never really had a problem for it. I think the reason being is because I check my spokes often and make sure they stay tight, and I feel like after a few rides and I get them really tightened down and dialed in, they just don't come loose anymore. So for me, it's not really a big deal. So I'm gonna go ahead and start at where the valve hole is. And now you'll notice, if you can look, maybe I'll get away from the logo, it might be easier to see. the holes alternate. So there's these holes on this side of the rim and those holes on that side of the rim. So again, another detail to pay attention to. I want the spoke to go on the same side of the rim as it is on the hub. So we're going to start at the valve hole, and we're going to go on the spoke that's on this side of the hub and this side of the wheel. Of course, the first one, oh, don't drop that. I always get a few extra nipples when I order them because I drop them and stuff. So I just do a few turns on there. I don't want to go very tight. Then I grab my next spoke. Now you have to realize I still have to put the other spoke in here going the other direction, which is going to come from the outside. So I have to skip a hole. I gotta go get my door, so I will be back. Okay, sorry about the interruption. For you it was like a split second. For me it was a good, what, 45 or so minutes. So I'm gonna go the next spoke into the next spoke hole. So here's another tricky part. It really doesn't matter as long as you're going the correct direction. Which way you want to start going in your wheel, but you want to count 4 spoke. You want to go every 4th spoke hole on the rim. So you've got this one, then you got the one for the other side, then you got the next one for this side, but that's going to be for the inside spoke, and then you've got the next one and then this one. So you want to go, I'll show you once I get it in there. Come on. Is this like old man problems? Can't even get the spoke lined up in the hole. Alright. Put that on a few twists. So, I'll show you from this side. There's a spoke in that hole. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you go to the next one. So when you're staying on one side and you're going all the way around, you want to go every 4th hole from the inside. So I'm going to continue this pattern, and then I'll show you the next steps. Okay, this is where I want to double check my work. I want to make sure that I have one empty hole all the way around here and that these look even. Just visually I can tell they're in the correct space, and you want to make sure you have 3 holes in between each spoke on the rim, and you want to make sure that you're using the hole to the outside of the rim that's on this side of the hub. You definitely don't want your spoke going crossing to the hole on the other side of the rim. So there's definitely a pattern here. Now if I twist this way, you can see right up here is where the valve goes. So if I twist this way, you see how this spoke goes in towards the valve? That's not the way you want your hub to twist. You could twist the other way, and then you can see that this is going away from the hole, and that would be how you want to twist. Then you can really do this one of 2 ways. You can do this side if you want with the other spokes on the outside, or you can go over to this side and get all your spokes, inside spokes done. I'm gonna do it that way because then it just becomes inside, and then I go outside. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Now this is where it's gonna get really tricky, and this is actually where I go and look at that wheel to see where to go. I believe, if I remember right, I'm gonna be one little bit over and then to the next hole over. So let me figure that out so I can explain it to you a little better, because this is the most crucial part where you don't want to mess things up. Okay, so this is where things get really tricky and difficult to explain. So there's our valve hole. This is the first inside spoke that I put in the new wheel, right? Now, if we look through to the other side of the hub, you'll notice the holes on the other side aren't perfectly lined up with these holes. They're offset halfway between these two holes. They're just off alignment a little bit. So that's very important. So when I go and look to the other side, the inside spoke on the other side is going the opposite direction, right, than this spoke, and it's on the hole that's to the right side, closer to the valve hole of this spoke. So it's actually crossing a little bit. So, and then there are 10 spoke holes between. So that's what you want to copy, because that's what's going to give you this result up here and the correct angle and tension. So this is where things start to get a little challenging, is how do you start lacing the other side compared to this side. So I'll try to repeat it again. So there's this hole, that's the valve hole, that's our starting point. On the opposite side, you want to get the hole that's almost lined up with this hole, but it's a little bit closer to the valve hole. But then the spoke goes the opposite direction, opposing it, on the inside, and 10 spoke holes over. So let's do that, and then we'll move on from there. Because then once you get that one spoke in, everything else falls into place. So here's my valve hole. Here's the hole in my hub for that valve hole. So I'm going to look across, really line it up, and I see that this hole here is the one that's closest to this one, but to the right from where you're looking at it. So I'm going to feed that in there. All right. Now I'm going to count 10 holes over. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then in the 11th hole is where this spoke is going to go in. And now you'll see when I put that in there how I'm starting to get that pattern. And then you'll also see how this spoke kind of lines up with the valve hole. This thing that I just did is the most crucial piece of building a wheel correctly, because if you screw this up, everything else is messed up. So I'm going to go ahead and put a little grease on there, throw a nipple on there, and away we go. Now everything from here is automatic. Like, we're going to go put all these spokes on the other side of the hub, the inside spokes, not the outside spokes. And then once I get all those in place, doing the outside spokes, we know we're doing a 3-cross, so that's easy. You just pop out, cross 3 spokes, go in the hole. There's no figuring out to do anything like that, and I'll explain that when I get there. So I'm going to go ahead and lace the other side of this hub, and then we'll get to the next step. Okay, here we go. So I did the other side, and you can kind of see the cross pattern going on. Gets really easy from here. What's kind of nice about this is I have the hub twisted now, so I don't have to sit there and keep trying to tweak it to get the spoke to reach the hole and all that stuff. So we have the spoke hole here, and then the valve hole, and you can see how these parallelly line up. So they're perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and show you the next step on how you start doing the outside spokes. Okay, so before I get started with the other side, one thing I did forget to mention is, remember the spoke length thing. Make sure when you're lacing the smaller flange side of the hub, you use the longer spokes, and the bigger size flange of the hubs, you use the shorter spokes. So I forgot to mention that. I just didn't want to miss out. If the hub flanges are the same on both sides, then it doesn't matter, but in this case it does matter. All right, so we're going to go ahead and start with the first outside spoke. you know what's nice about this is it doesn't really matter where you start, which one you do first or anything, because we've already got all the decisions made here. We've already got our valve hole lined up properly, everything. So basically just pick a hole, any hole, take your spoke, make sure, oh, this is the part that does matter. This is the longer spoke, so I'm gonna go on the small flange side. I'm gonna thread that spoke through. So there it is. And remember, we're doing 3 cross. So this first spoke is right away, 1, 2, 3. And then you just go to the next hole that's on the correct side of the rim, which is the same side as the hub. And then you insert it into that hole. So really super simple, but there is one additional thing you got to do before you insert this into the hole. So I'm going to throw a little grease on here and I'll show you. Whoa, that was more than just a little grease. I'm going to tuck, so I go over, under. Let's get a little closer. So I'm going to go over this first spoke, which you really don't have any choice. Over this spoke, then I'm going to kind of flex the spoke a little, go under this last spoke that I have to cross, and then I'm going to go into the nearest correct side on the rim. And this is where things get a little tight, so you might have to put the nipple in there, line things up, and get it together, and then you can tighten that spoke nipple a few turns. So there you go. Long spokes on this side, short spokes on the other side, over, under. So I'll show you on the built wheel. You can see over, under, hole. So basically a skipping one from this last spoke you crossed. So that's the trick, and I'm going to follow this pattern all the way around on one side, and then I'll go ahead and switch to the other side. I moved my work light over because when I don't have all this media stuff on, I can't see, so it's probably a little brighter than it was before. Okay, so I finished this side. And this is the small flange, so these are the longer spokes. So they're 3 cross, 1, 2, 3, and then they go into the next hole, skipping one on this side of the rim. So it's pretty straightforward. Now I'm gonna go flip it over and do the outside spokes. Now let me correct this because I keep saying outside spoke and inside spoke. So an outside spoke actually gets pushed through the inside of the hub, and an inside spoke gets pushed through the outside of the hub, just to be clear. So when I say outside spoke, I mean when the spoke comes through the hole and goes on the outside of the hub. So that means you have to push it through from the inside, and then it comes around to the outside, if that makes any sense. So I just wanted to clarify that in case that gets a little confusing for some people. But we're just going to go ahead and pick a hole, any hole, stick this spoke in, and then we're going to count 1, 2, 3, go under, and there's only one hole left to get to. And so what I'm realizing here is I'm short reach. This is where things get to be a little challenging. This whole hub needs to twist, and sometimes these spokes will fight me being able to twist that hub. But once I get it in, and I just usually push on these spokes and try to twist the hub until I can get this to reach. Once I get this in, then everything will start to come together. But it's getting this guy to reach that's going to be another little bit of a challenge. Another tool I use when I can't really reach that spoke is I have this thing called a nipple driver, and I can go into the top and I can start threading that, and it did actually thread, so that's kind of sweet. So now I'm on my way, well on my way to getting this hub to properly twist, and make some of these spokes that feel like they're way too long actually not be way too long, because once this all starts to balance out, everything should be good. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this side and we'll see where we're at. Okay, I have this wheel completely laced and it is not true or accurate at all, which is the next step, is to start truing this bad boy and getting it set up. I only put these in about 3 twists, so they're still sticking out quite a way. So now I'm gonna slowly start tightening this wheel, and I'll put it in the truing stand. That'll be the next video. This is the build part. Then we'll talk about the truing part when that time comes. Thanks for watching.